Talk about the Louisiana rep that died, a young man.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is out of the Hill. Louisiana Rep-elect Luke Litlow died on Tuesday after being hospitalized with COVID-19. He was 41 years old, and he was admitted to the St. Francis Medical Center due to complications from the coronavirus. And I won't read the whole article here, but he left 2 children and a wife behind, and he was actually slated to succeed his boss, Representative Ralph Abraham, as a Republican in the state of Louisiana, Louisiana's 5th district, congressional district. First, all respect to his family, and all of our condolences, I think, to this family. Very sad when I saw this, but anybody want to weigh in on it first?
Well, the first thing I thought of when I read the article was, of course, just total emotional sadness, and actually how close to home that this really can be. For a gentleman of the age of 41 not having any underlying health conditions, and then, he had such a prosperous future ahead of him, and then bam, this happens. So what I got from it, reading this was like, if this can happen to him, this can happen to any of us.
I want to bring up an article as I read that, and I thought about it. I read a lot of things on Twitter, and there was a bunch of stuff on Facebook, and there's all kinds of articles on this representative. But something that I thought was very interesting is that they only focused on that, he died of COVID-19, which is an anomaly, right? They didn't focus on anything that 41-year-old dying of COVID-19 is extremely rare, extremely rare. So then, as I'm investigating some of this rarity, I came across this article, and there's a Pittsburgh representative, Mike Reese. He dies of an apparent brain aneurysm at 42 years old, also a Republican. Now, I'm not saying conspiracy because they're both Republicans at all. And also, let's make that clear, I guess. Just reading it, but the article, what I found interesting, similar age and things like that, but the focus was so different.
Right.
The focus on the 42-year-old that died of an aneurysm was, lots of condolences and prayers and praise for this, who he was and what he did and all these things. And some of these other articles on the COVID-19 death of the representative in Louisiana, it was focused on that really massive negative, and that it was the COVID-19, and there were all these articles were proposing more lockdowns, and maybe the mask orders should be even harsher and things like that. And how these two stories, very similar, because it's very rare for someone at 42 years old to die of a brain aneurysm. Right. It's very rare for someone of COVID-19 to die at that age. But the focus was so different, Why do you think that is?
One sells.
One sells.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The media's priority of what gets headlines.
Yeah.
And if you read the article more, it wasn't technically, yes, it was COVID, but it was from the treatment that he was given.
Right.
So it wasn't even that it was COVID and that's what he died from. It was the treatment that he was given that affected him.
Yeah,
but you don't hear any of that. You have to get very much into it too. Right. But the headlines are going to read, "Oh, he dies because of COVID."
Yeah. It was more of a reaction to the treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a super good point. Absolutely. I think that what it said to me though too is that, like you say, that was good, that it sells. Fear sells. And I think that it's so important to understand that people, with all due respect to both of these gentlemen, they die. We die. And to me, it was like one of them said how he lived, and the other said how he died.
Right.
And that's so important to me, losing a child at 17 years old in a car crash. It's so important how we live. Right. The death part of it happened.
And I was just going to say, and that's what we want to be remembered by. We want to be remembered for that, and how we
Right.
lived, not how we died.
Absolutely. The impact that we leave while we're here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing I took out of, I mean, not the most important, but the ironic part of the article was that he was supposed to fill somebody else's shoes that he worked for. I mean, just the hopes and dreams and aspirations he had to do great things for his boss that he had mentored under. And the ironicness kind of that, to be able to be voted in, you know, into that same position that you had just worked for, that kind of thing. You know, it's political, yes, but it's also kind of following in somebody's footsteps, if you want to call it that kind of thing. Yeah, it mentioned his children. It didn't go on more anything, you know, sports hobbies, family, different things like that. Except obviously, political life was his life, you know.
Yeah, and there were so many of those articles that it focused on more that death, and it was COVID and the fear,
Right.
rather than it mentioned very little bit of his family and things like that.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I was really it was just sad to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.